Do you ever get to Sunday night feeling drained, wondering how you'll actually tackle the upcoming week? I struggled with this same overwhelm until I developed a weekly routine I called the Boss Reset. And honestly, it's changed everything on how I approach each Monday. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to easily do your own Boss Reset, transforming your week from chaotic and exhausting to focused and productive and ready to actually make those boss moves. To start, let me show you how to go from mental clutter to mental peace. Imagine you're trying to pour yourself a fresh, hot cup of coffee on Monday morning, but the mug is already full of old, cold coffee from last week, and there's no room to pour your fresh, must-have hot coffee. My point? There's no room for anything new until you dump out what's stale. That's exactly what happens when we try to plan our week without first making space. Our brains are already full, cluttered with unfinished thoughts, browser tabs, text messages, to-dos we didn't get to, and stress from the week before. If we don't clear all that out first, our fresh ideas and goals have nowhere to go. We just kind of overflow, and not really in a good way. That's why my first step in my weekly reset is a simple but powerful ritual to release the mental clutter so you can start fresh and lead your business with a clear, grounded mind. So actually, let me draw this out for you. So what this release ritual does is it helps us go into the next steps from a positive mental space. And that's because what we know is that like attracts like, right? And if we look at our triangle, this is not just woo-woo law of attraction, although it is. It's also scientifically proven. If you're in psychology, you probably know this triangle. And we have our emotions that impact our thoughts, that impact our behaviors, right? This is very simple cognitive psychology, but this emotions also come from our spirit is what I like to add to that. And our thoughts are in our mind. And we take behaviors or actions from our body, what's real, what's tangible, right? So these things are all connected. It doesn't always have to start with our emotions. It could start with our thoughts impacting our behaviors and vice versa, emotions, all those things. So if we can start our weekly review from a positive mental space, we're going to put our week trajectory of positivity. We're going to add things to our schedule from a space of positivity and not like overworking ourselves or feeling burnt out or like you're not doing enough. You'll start from a really positive place, and that's going to impact you in drastic ways, even if it doesn't seem like in the week to come, because of the way that it impacts you doing your weekly review and your weekly planning. And the first release happens in your mind, not by brain dumping, but by capturing what matters most. So we'll call this a brain capture. This is where you will collect open loops, mental to-dos, ideas, and worries you're going to pull from your brain. You're also going to capture things that you have on post-its around you in your work area. You're going to capture things you maybe screenshotted throughout the week that you wanted to keep. You're going to capture notes you jotted down in your journals or notebooks throughout the week, or any notes that you put in like a notes app. And you're going to consolidate all of that into your second brain in your digital task system or your digital running to-do list. For me, I put it in my Notion second brain. And what's crucial to remember is it's not a brain dump, it's a brain transfer so you can have mental clarity. The second release happens in your space because you can't create in chaos. So you're going to close browser tabs, you're going to archive and triage your inboxes, you're going to file or trash screenshots or downloads, you're going to wipe your desk, reset your workspace, you're going to put your planner and your notebook in place. What's important to remember, you're going to clear the surface so you can move forward with actual mental peace. And when you do both of these, you're going to capture the chaos and clear the clutter. And by the way, I do have this all laid out for you in my GTD, Getting Things Done Weekly Review checklist. If you're interested, you can grab it from the link below. It comes in a Notion template for free and also a PDF if you're into PDFs. Okay, next I'm going to show you how to capitalize on this mental piece to be more productive in the coming week. Being busy without alignment is like being on a train that's moving full speed, but no one checked to see if it's on the right track. You're burning fuel, moving fast, maybe even looking impressive, impressive from the outside, but you could be completely heading in the wrong direction. That's why this next part of this reset is stepping back to make sure your weekly calendar actually reflects your bigger mission, not just busyness, because after all, you're the conductor. It's your job to check the destination. So the whole point of this is that your calendar should serve your mission, not the other way around. And what I recommend is something I call my boss weekly review. So the first thing we're going to address is all the noise, all those things you've captured through the week that are out of your brain, but they're still unorganized. And to address all the noise, what we're going to do is to clear by sorting our inboxes, which I largely use this para method in my Notion Second Brain to do so. But essentially, you're going to sort all your inboxes. So you're going to sort your task inbox. You're going to sort your email inboxes, anything you flagged as far as emails. That's the way I do it during the week that I can't get to. And your physical inbox. So any mail that you've gathered throughout the week. And like I said, I largely use the para method with my Notion Second Brain to do this. I have a link to my Notion Second Brain template below if you want to check it out. I basically clear my task inbox in my Notion Second Brain and clear all my other inboxes, like I said, my email inbox and my physical inboxes that I didn't get to during the week. The most important part of this clearing process is processing your task or your to-dos that you captured and deciding which ones it should be done in this upcoming week. And what that does is it gets us organized. So you might do this organizing in your second brain, or you might just be organizing your running to-do list and wherever you have those other digital things that you've captured. I highly recommend looking into the second brain system that uses the para method, so you can do all this in one place. You can organize your ideas, your notes, projects, and your tasks, that running to-do list, but do whatever works best for you. Another thing that we're going to address during our weekly review is confusion. In business, what I've learned from my own experiences, mentors, and even women that I've coached is that we can't make decisions and take actions by just shooting in the dark. If our business is going to succeed, we need to be strategic. And we're going to do that by tracking. Okay, we're going to track what I call our metrics that matter. That's actually a term I got from Sunny Lenarduzzi. And we're also going to track, so those are things like KPIs, our habits. So also tracking any habits that we're trying to solidify. And the magic of tracking these things each week is they help keep us focused. They help keep us focused on doubling down on what matters and correcting or eliminating what's not. And then the last thing that our Boss Weekly Review addresses is the drift. Okay, how often do we set big business goals, but as time goes on, life gets busy and we're in the go, go, go mode, and slowly we've drifted away from the goals that we set and sometimes even forgetting about them entirely. And what we do in our review that addresses that is going to be align. We're going to align with our mission and our goals. We take a moment to check in with our weekly lead goals. Those are those that are SMART, so specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. Our monthly goals, if you use my system, are based on your quarterly goals and your yearly goals. And then we realign with our mission. And this allows us to stay on track with our goals, make progress, and actually build momentum. And what this Boss Weekly Review does is it gets your mind, business, and your mission back in sync. And again, if you want the exact order I implement this weekly review, grab my free weekly review checklist, which I have for you in a Notion template and a PDF, whichever one you prefer. Now, mental clarity is great, but how do we actually get stuff done after we get organized and aligned? Let me show you that next. This is where we plan the next week like a boss. All those tasks that you organized and decided to be done this week, now is the time to actually schedule them. But wait, there is a crucial step between weekly review and weekly planning that every boss must take, running those tasks through what I like to call the boss matrix before you ever add them to your calendar. Many of us have heard of the Eisenhower matrix, but I don't think it's that useful for entrepreneurs. Just because it's urgent or important doesn't necessarily mean you should be the one doing it in your business. In fact, what I think we should be asking instead is, how much is it you coded and how much could it impact your business? So here's how to actually use this boss matrix. So when I say you coded, what I mean are things that only maybe you can do, or things that energize you, things you're passionate about, or things maybe you're just the face of that you have to do as well. So let's start down here in this bottom left corner, which I'm going to highlight in red. This area is low impact and it's low you coded. And I call this area the swamp of productivity, right? These are things that you shouldn't be doing at all because they're not impacting the business and they're not you coded. They're things like fiddling with fonts or messing manually with tech or responding to comments or being on a social media platform. Like I was on like Instagram, that's bringing you no joy and no adding to your bottom line. So these things you should just eliminate. Okay, this top area I'm gonna put in yellow actually, and I call this area the candy bowl. This area is highly you coded, so it energizes you, or you're passionate about it, or you enjoy them, but they don't do much impact in your business. So they taste good, but they don't have a lot of nutritional value, and you don't necessarily have to eliminate them, but just like a candy bowl, you shouldn't be reaching for them all the time. So this might be, you know, responding to comments or doing some other things in your business that you maybe don't necessarily want to give away all the time, but you want to have your hand in a little bit just because you enjoy them, like designing graphics, and you should be doing these things sparingly. This next area I will put in orange, and these things are high impact on your business, but they are low you coded, and I call these things the engine room. And this quadrant is packed with things that are crucial for the ship, like the engine room, but it's not necessarily where the captain should be, and maybe even other people can do them better than you, things like video editing. And so at the beginning of your business, you may not always be able to delegate these things. So what I like to recommend in this order is to automate, systemize, or delegate. If you can automate it with software, or if you can systemize it in a way that you can do it really quickly because there's a process, or if you have the means, if you're not like in the beginning stages of your business, it may just be things that you are delegating out. So this is the engine room where you're going to automate, systemize, or delegate because they're important for your business, but they don't need to be done by you. Then we have this top right corner, which I'm calling the CEO flow zone. Okay, these are things that are highly you coded and have high impact on the business. And you might not do all of these things 100%. You might use what Dan Martell calls the 10-80-10 rule, where you're doing the first 10%, then you're leaving the middle 80%, the bulk of the work, to delegate or systemize or automate to something else. And then you're taking on again the last 10% to get it done. So for instance, when I designed my planner, all the IP is mine, the content, the strategies, the ideas for the design of the outside, that's all me. I did the first 10% of, which is highly me coded, right? Being the psychologist, and really aesthetic. And then I had it manufactured. I didn't do the printing. I didn't do the final graphic design, all that kind of stuff. It was outsourced. And then the final 10% of the revisions and honing it to make it really my vision was me again. So this is the CEO flow zone, those things that are highly you coded or that you need to be the face of, like creating content, those kinds of things. And then up here in this top very right corner is very high impact on the business, and I call this area the visionary task zone. And this visionary task zone is going to be completely done by you, well, you and your partners, if you have partners, creating the vision for the company, the direction, the mission, the chief visionary officer task. And so this green area, this is where vision meets velocity. This is where you really have a lot of impact on the things that you're adding to your to-do list. But here's the thing, knowing what to add to your weekly to-do list as an entrepreneur is actually a far jump from actually getting them done. So next I'm going to show you how to get more done in less time the boss way. So I always recommend my BBB method to actually get things done. First B actually stands for book, where you're going to book everything from your digital calendar for that week into your weekly planners. So you're going to move things like meetings and appointments and anything everything that you must do and weekly routines, those non-negotiables, into your weekly planner. The next thing you're going to do is to batch. So you're going to take all those things from your running to-do list that you decided needs to be done in this upcoming week and decide where they need to get done according to your weekly batch days. The third B in my BBB method is to block. And this is where you will time block your day, which I believe is the most important step to get it right, which is why I teed up this video I did on my 3-7 time blocking method for you to watch next. Until next time, cheers to planning, manifesting, and enjoying your dream life. Namaste.